Hello, everyone. Here we are for another Worth the Fight podcast. I want to do a deep dive around the flow state. I've been feeling a lot of flow of late. I've been sensing a lot of flow in my clients as well. And I want to, with this next 10 to 15 minute daily dose, I want to invite possibility. I'm going to riff on the flow state for about 10 to 15 minutes here. I remember when I first heard about flow. I was in the south of Costa Rica. I was on a retreat from a retreat on my travel journey, looking for inspiration, looking for healing, looking for clarity on the path ahead. And I remember hearing Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel on the James Altucher show, and it just gripped me in the most incredible way, or maybe even activated me, gripped me and then activated me. And I've been trying earnestly to understand and to deepen into their program and to understand flow, because the way that they were describing it was so aligned with my experiences that I was having with psychedelics and with healing and with tapping into a part of myself and the grace that would come from letting go and the lightness and the focus and the flow that would subsequently come from after these, or that I would experience during these healing ceremonies and then afterwards. So let's dive in here. What is flow? The researchers would say that it's the optimal state of consciousness when we feel and perform our best. When action and awareness merge, again, an optimal state of consciousness, we're dialed into the present moment. They'd also say that while in flow, we're massively elevated. Productivity, creativity, and learning. And when I had Stephen Kotler on my podcast, I think it was, it was a long time ago. It was early on in 2019, 2020. He had talked about how collaboration would be, if it wasn't a flow triangle of productivity, creativity, and learning, it would have, if it was a triangle, collaboration would be the fourth benefit of flow. So we're dialed into the moment, our brain is activated, and again, we have more ability to process data and to envision the path ahead. The work around flow first started in the late 90s with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote a book called Flow. He was a University of Chicago professor, and he is a big pioneer in the positive psychology space. So he was the first to the party here, and writing about the optimal state of consciousness, writing about the flow state, following. When I say that he was the first, maybe Napoleon Hill, I don't know. There's writers that also followed successful people around for years and mapped, a breadth of research that was around personal success. So I think that certainly Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi he stood on the shoulders of giants that came before him. But again, his work jumps out as the late 90s. That's when the positive psychology really was on the scene. There was that awareness of, hey, we're studying all of this, what's wrong with the human condition, neurosis, pain, depression, and probably not that much in terms of trauma, but anxiety. Again, everything that's wrong with the human condition as opposed to the upper limits and what's right. Gratitude, kindness, flow state, altruism, all these wonderful kind of higher level attributes of the human experience. It was Stephen Kotler's work. He picked up the thread from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and he wrote a book called The Rise of Superman. Very profound book, very thought-provoking book about where he's following around all these extreme sports athletes, and he's witnessing these crazy records that are being broken, and this exponential growth that is happening quietly. And we've seen it over the last 10 to 20 to 30 years. The X Games, and it seems like every time you turn the TV on, it's like like, what are they doing? Like, what? They're just crazy feats. And that ultimately led us here a few years ago where Alex Honnold did the Free Solo, the documentary Free Solo, where he climbed El Capitan. He climbed, I think it was a 3-hour climb without Any Ropes. Wonderful documentary, highly recommended. Talk about expanding possibility. For him to be dialed into the present moment in a deep, immersive flow state. One mistake would kill him, and one mistake means death. And he was that confident and that trained in his craft that he could climb up the side of that mountain and do that in front of the world. And again, inviting even bigger than capital P possibility. Because what's inside of Alex Honnold is inside of you, it's inside of me, it's inside of all of us. And he's just worked hard to create the environment for flow to thrive, for him to get into that flow state. And insane amount of training for him and his commitment to the craft, to his craft. Again, a lot of gratitude for how he's expanded our perception of possibility. I'd love to tie this in with psilocybin, LSD. There's so much buzz in Silicon Valley, and that's where this all really kicked off, the modern psychedelic renaissance back around 2015. Microdosing became really popular. Dr. James Fadiman, I've mentioned him. He wrote and released the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, and he showcased a myriad of different, or a bunch of microdosers that were microdosing for a myriad of different reasons. He wrote and released that in 2011, kind of following up Steve Jobs and some of his bold claims about how LSD was critical for the inspiration that led to Apple, and how he planted that seed in our consciousness about the incredible potential within these misunderstood medicines, and has helped to reshape how we view and perceive these experiences. So again, in Silicon Valley, it's thought that a third of C-level Silicon Valley executives and the coders in the valley are microdosing psilocybin and or LSD to elevate their cognition so they can tap more into the flow state, so they can get in that deep, immersive state. And again, massively elevated productivity, creativity, and learning. There was a McKinsey study that is often cited. It was a self-reported study, but a study nonetheless, where the executives in flow said that they were 500% more productive while in flow than out of flow. Think of that. You get dial in, fully immersed with one day of flow states, and you get a whole week worth of work done in one day. And there was some studies that were cited in Stealing Fire, which is again an incredible book that was Jamie Wheal and Stephen Kotler. They followed up Stephen Kotler's work, The Rise of Superman, and they teamed up and they wrote, I think, one of the most important books that has ever been written in the psychedelic renaissance, maybe one of the most important books ever written, period. And in it, they're exploring the altered states economy and how we're utilizing these altered states to expand our service impact, to glean insights, and to tap into consciousness and data that we wouldn't be tapping into otherwise. And highly recommended. Stealing Fire, the audiobook is wonderful. Again, Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheal came together, and they put their egos aside and wrote one of the most important books ever, showing again what is possible. Going back to psilocybin and LSD, there's a lot of buzz around how the microdosing helps us get into the flow state. And what's happening in our brain? What's the science? The science is that microdosing promotes neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is our brain and our nervous system's ability to change to internal and external conditions. So we're able to rewire patterns possibly from a maladaptive state to an adaptive state, a maladaptive state of worry, of stagnation, of rumination. We can rewire that, or rewire even trauma to peace ease, clarity, confidence. And, I've been beating this drum. It's not about the psychedelics. I've been beating this drum since I wrote and released Worth the Fight on Valentine's Day of 2019. It's about how are we channeling, how are we aiming the boosted plasticity? And we aim that by getting very clear about our intention. Why are we here? What is our work to do? And then to create space amongst the busy day where we can capture the insights, where we can integrate the insights. Meditation, connecting to our breath, doing breath work. We've talked about the Wim Hof method. We talked about NSDR, bravely journaling our thoughts. The best way that I can describe microdosing is 3 to 5% more empathy, 3 to 5% more courage, and 3 to 5% more self-awareness. So we're bravely putting pen to paper, and we're capturing those insights, those ahas, the revelations, the eureka moments, or what Dr. Richard Ramolt, he reminds us that it's not all like roses, rainbows, and unicorns. Sometimes it's the uh-ohs. We're capturing the, oh man, I'm missing the mark, or oh, whoa, that's not cool, in terms of possibly our behavior or dynamics that are unhealthy for us to realize, and to tap to a part of our consciousness that we wouldn't maybe have access to otherwise. Or I think that we would have access, but the microdosing serves as a catalyst. It can serve as that momentum that can help us pay attention. And I love that notion that when we're stuck or we're blocked, that we're like a big boulder, and the boulder is really hard to move. And psychedelics, whether it be microdosing or macrodosing, is like a wedge that goes right underneath that boulder, and then it starts, hey, the boulder's starting to move, we're starting to feel good, we're in motion. And from there, the magic can happen. From there, we, again, are in a state of movement, state of motion. Our cognitive faculties are boosted, they're elevated. We start to see the path ahead, we start to see the obstacles that are in our way, and we can start to make these heartfelt adjustments and course corrections. So again, in the flow state, massively elevated productivity. There was that creativity or that productivity study that we're 500% more productive. The creativity study that I've mentioned ad nauseum with Dr. Fadiman, when he had 48 C-level engineers, I believe, in the Silicon Valley area. This was in the 60s in the Bay Area, and that all had a professional problem they were struggling with. That was a prereq for this scientific study, this clinical trial. And I believe 40 out of the 48 had a satisfactory creative solution after sitting with, and this was not the microdose, this was more like a mini dose. This was a mini to higher dose, 100 micrograms of LSD. Let's make sure that that's very clear. 100 micrograms. LSD is extraordinarily potent, and I believe there was 100 milligrams of mescaline, which was a comparable dose, and that was catalyzing the creative inspiration where these engineers could see where they were stuck, they could see the blocks, and then they could ultimately see the solution, a satisfactory solution to the creative challenge that they were struggling with for again 6 months. And so again, productivity, creativity, and learning. In Stealing Fire, they talk about how while in flow we can learn twice as fast. And what is learning? It is neuroplasticity, it's change. And they use some studies from DARPA and the military training radio operators and snipers that while in flow they could learn twice as fast. And so there's so much possibility. And this is what activated my heart back in 2017, activated my mind. Whoa, if we could channel and harness this flow and point it in the direction of serving others and living our best life, what is possible? I'm going to leave you with that question. What is possible when we're getting into flow state? And that's what my work is about, is helping my clients tap into the flow state, get clear about why they're here, so they can, again, channel that positive energy. Those are dangerous numbers right there. Again, productivity, creativity, learning. And then again, the fourth attribute would be collaboration. If we're tapping into that elevated, boosted state of consciousness and the flow state, and we're moving and grooving, we can make big things happen. So I'm going to leave you again with that. If you have any questions about the flow state or anything else, I'm here to serve. Please reach out. Please put the comments or the questions in the comments below. Any topics that you want me to share about or to riff on or to create videos on, I'd be delighted to hear. And I would love to hear your experiences in flow. If there's any other books that you would recommend that might be helpful for us all to get into more flow out towards this edge. And again, I wrote about the flow state a lot in my book, Worth the Fight. I love the support of my book, worththefightbook.org. Again, Worth the Fight. And would appreciate you sharing this video if this resonates and you think that this might add value to your friends or your family. Again, so much love to all of you. Love and peace. We'll see you tomorrow.